Hey everyone, one thing I absolutely love about TikTok is how it's become the perfect breeding ground for the weirdest groups of people you can imagine. I previously reacted to a video about the Viking community on there, which at the time seemed bizarre, but compared to this new lady I found out about that calls herself a psychic, she is leagues above them. To give a quick summary, she makes TikToks and this kind of stuff like tarot reading, which some people might believe, because these TikToks of hers do quite well. But that isn't the issue here, because I would much rather have the app be a welcoming place for everyone, so that I can see all the weird people out there in the world. The real issue here was when she slandered someone back in 2022, where, in response to the awful tragedy at the University of Idaho that same year, with 4 students being stabbed, she called out some random teacher at the school and said that she was behind it all. Thankfully, the criminal was caught and arrested, but she tried to say that she coerced him into doing it, with the only proof being her psychic visions she gets. I legitimately can't see how someone can look at this tragedy and immediately spin it into content for TikTok, as well as attack a random person that had nothing to do with it, who was also grieving. I think this video here did a good job covering the aftermath, where the teacher sued the TikToker for spreading misinformation and creating lies, with basically no proof, which she deserves, because you're going to see just how awfully she's prepared.
This is a self-proclaimed TikTok psychic, and what she's about to do will change her life forever.
This is not a feeling, this is knowledge. I did a reading when I saw Rebecca Schofield on the History Department's page on Rebecca Schofield and her connection. I also did readings on some of the other people and their connection. What came out on their reading is how they responded to the crimes and how they were feeling about it. What came out in Rebecca Schofield's reading was how she implemented it, how she planned it, and why.
So that was Ashley Gilliard. This self-proclaimed TikTok psychic just lost everything in court and she has no one but herself to blame. And we'll get into that throughout the story. But the clip that we just saw happened in late 2022 when she decided to capitalize off of the tragedy that happened in the University of Idaho and claim essentially a random professor was behind all of that. This professor is Rebecca Schofield. Ashley continued to make dozens of videos claiming that Rebecca was the mastermind behind all of this until enough was enough and Rebecca sent her a cease and desist. So did the TikTok psychic Ashley
a shooting? Just by him mentioning a university situation, sounds pretty bad.
Well, you've seen the title of this video, so I'm sure you have an idea of where this is going. Because this was the TikTok psychic's next move.
I'm about to put this demand letter Rebecca Schofield attorney sent me by the tissue so I can wipe my with it.
And then, to make things worse for herself, she made this video.
I've been against people, big and small corporations and giants and systemic policies and racism and won. They all regret coming against me. All of them. Now Rebecca is going to be added to that list of regretful people. I haven't been served yet, but
threatening your rival is a pretty good move in court.
Start planning because I cannot wait to present my ideas in court regarding Rebecca Schofield and her role in the of the 4 University of Idaho students. Like, I have physical evidence against Rebecca Schofield that validates everything that I've said about her, but I can't speak on it now because it has to wait for court. So hopefully court doesn't take too long.
Yeah, that just doesn't make sense. If she had proof, why is she waiting for court? It's all going to be brought up there anyway. The professor did actually send a couple more cease and desists, but clearly that got her nowhere. So
I want to see how many TikToks she made on this Schofield professor. If it was so bad that she had to sue her
for her life over and over again. And she kept on getting outs, but she kept choosing the worst possible route for her life. But if you thought things were bad, just like so many of my other videos, it's about to get way worse because Ashley, the TikTok psychic, she decides to represent herself. I still can't believe this. And this is against the 2 complaints of defamation the professor filed against Ashley. And this is all because the TikTok psychic went on to TikTok and confidently said in the ballpark of about 100 videos, 1, the professor masterminded this horrific crime. 2,
God damn, that's insane. I mean, I'm guessing she must have been really dedicated into this like psychic persona that she wanted to make that many videos. I mean, most of the time when people claim that they're psychic, they only do it like once or twice for like a couple of views, because that's what gets people really a lot of attention, either from people who believe it or people who shit on them like, you're not psychic, but you make that many videos from some person. I'm guessing she might have gone to that university, which is why she like talks about it so much, but you make 100 videos slandering someone about a crime that might have happened and pinning it on one person when you don't have a lot of evidence, that is pretty crazy. Because at that point, you might believe in something that I want to know about. Because you have to have one big piece of evidence to prove that you're 100% sure it's that person against the situation. I'm guessing throughout this video, it's gonna her making more dumb moves, like her representing herself, like not even getting a lawyer. That is so dumb.
Very inappropriate relationship romantically with one of the victims. So these are two extremely serious allegations to be spewing out 100 times on TikTok with zero proof. And then to make things even worse for Ashley, I guess because she's representing herself, she missed the deadline to file her response. So technically, she defaulted right out the gate. She essentially lost the case before it really started. But unfortunately for the professor, the court decided to be lenient towards the TikTok psychic and let her respond late and continue with the case. Ashley then decided to take this leniency and countersue. And there's a massive theme throughout this lawsuit, I guess because Ashley is representing herself. She's essentially side questing in this lawsuit and not actually focusing on the lawsuit. So for example, instead I guess
nothing stresses me more than court situations, because yeah, it can lead to like a domino effect of even more court cases. I mean, even that's just dumb. They were being nice to her and she wanted to sue them back.
Requests of admission, she was doing random stuff like that, or essentially spending all of her time trying to prove that Rebecca Schofield actually did this. What she failed to understand though is she's not supposed to start looking for proof after she's been sued for defamation. She's actually supposed to have the proof before she alleges something. But as I mentioned earlier, one of her many F-ups in this case was not responding to her request for admission. Because she didn't do that, that means she technically admitted to everything. And here's essentially like the request for admission that she was sent that she didn't respond to. And that is, admit that you have stated publicly that Rebecca Schofield had an affair with Kaylee. 2, admit that you have stated publicly that Rebecca Schofield was involved with what happened to the victims. 3, admit that plaintiff did not have an affair with Kaylee. My understanding is plaintiff is Rebecca.
Okay, so it must have been like a student she said had sex with the teacher.
Admit the only basis of your statement that plaintiff had an affair with Kaylee is your spiritual research, intuition, and instincts. So I can't believe this is real.
If I was a judge, I would actually just give up and be like, okay, I'd give up and like get some snacks to like eat in court, because it's just gonna be fun at that point. There's no point in being taken seriously.
Case, you would think this is a parody, but it's real because we're reading it together here. 6, admit that the only basis of your statement the plaintiff was involved with the of all the victims is your spiritual research, intuition, and instincts. 7, admit that you've never been to Moscow, Idaho. 8, admit that you've never been to the state of Idaho. 9, admit that you're not aware of any physical evidence.
There's an actual place in Idaho called Moscow.
10, admit that you're not aware of any physical evidence showing the plaintiff had an affair with Kaylee. 11, admit that you never said plaintiff communicated with Brian C. Koberger about the until Mr. Koberger was arrested on or about December 30th, 2022. So she really was just clout chasing throughout this entire thing. This is such a brain dead grift on the TikTok psychic's part, because I mean, like, when updates happened to the case, she then did like psychic readings, I guess, and then she was like, oh, she was communicating with Mr. Koberger. Okay, well, good thing you said that after they arrested the guy. 12, admit that you've never said plaintiff had access to a white Hyundai Elantra until
oh my god, it just keeps getting more and more longer.
Looking for information about a white Hyundai Elantra in relation to the on or about December 7th, 2022. 13, admit that you've never communicated with Jack. That is a messed up one, because I think I covered this in the first video I ever made on this situation. So here, Jack, if I remember correctly, is one of the close friends of one of the victims. This egotistical, moronic TikTok psychic decided to make a whole story claiming that this professor somehow coerced Jack to go through with this horrific action. Because like the whole situation is just horrible for them. Because imagine the unthinkable happens to your friends, like I guess from Jack's shoes, right? The unthinkable happens to your friends. And then suddenly this random insane woman on TikTok is claiming that some professor at the school you allegedly go to coerced you to do the unthinkable. And then you have the
oh my god, that is awful. Some people, I'm guessing that when that situation happened, that's when she kicks out of her psychic career. And if she did, that's really shitty. Because at that point, yeah, she has no evidence, as it's clearly shown beforehand. So I'm guessing she wanted to milk the attention. It's either she wanted the attention like from a situation, or she has like a conspiracy conspiracy theory, and those kind of people that believe those kind of stuff are so diehard in what they believe. It's near impossible to try to like change their belief, because they believe so firmly in these ideas that whatever new evidence you show them, no matter like how good it is, they will just like turn it down and just keep with what they believe. So it's just awful.
Family, where the unthinkable happens to your daughter, and then while you're trying to process all of this, you have some insane woman on TikTok claiming that she had an inappropriate relationship with a professor at the school she went to. And meanwhile, these videos on her TikTok were racking up hundreds of thousands of views. Like, it is insane. But continuing with what she admitted to, you have 14 admit that you have never communicated with Brian C. Kober. That's the guy who's currently arrested for it, who they believe did this. But skipping through this a little bit, you have 21 admit that you have no written information showing the plaintiff ever met Jack. This is what I was talking about earlier, where she was claiming that the professor forced Jack to do the unthinkable. It's so wild. I mean, the whole thing is just so disgusting. I'm happy the professor is about to get justice as well. 22, admit that you've never received any information orally from another human being showing that plaintiff ever met Jack. 23, admit that you received and read a cease and desist letter from Stoll Reeves LLP dated, She basically proved that by posting this video.
I'm about to put this demand letter Rebecca Sosa, attorney, sent me by the tissue so I can wipe my...
No matter how good you defend yourself, you cannot turn that down.
Receiving a whole series of cease and desists. And then 30 is admit that you became aware of the press release describing the request for admission. You continue to state that the plaintiff was involved with the... So essentially, the police put out a statement saying, hey, we have no evidence that this professor did this. So she saw that and just continued making video upon video, still claiming the professor did this. So as I previously mentioned,
so it was for attention. Again, like, yes, he believes in a theory that has solid evidence that she become really diehard in it. So it doesn't matter. Even if the police told her directly, they have no evidence that this person did this, as you said. She's still gonna hold on to that belief.
So right out of the gate, she's already cooked. But this whole thing still turned into a massive roller coaster of events because she went in with high hopes.
I think this is how y'all want me to feel about a measly ass $75,000 lawsuit that I'm gonna win.
How much?
Feel about a measly ass $75,000 lawsuit that I'm gonna win.
It's so loud.
Oh my God. Rebecca is suing me.
Then she had a change of heart and then suddenly was saying this is so unfair and she shouldn't have been sued to begin with.
Y'all need to stop asking me about this lawsuit. It should not even have been allowed. First of all, for multiple reasons. But for the legal reason was because it's the improper venue. I'm not an Idaho resident, so I should not be sued. Then they got the nerve to not allow pro se clients to e-file. Meanwhile, so her attorneys are e-filing documents. If I want to file a document, I got to fly to Idaho or mail it in and hope they get it. First of all, there needs to be some type of system that automatically declines lawsuits that are frivolous. Why would you sue a Texas resident in Idaho? It makes no sense. So I will file this motion to dismiss or whatever it is that it needs to file, but I shouldn't have to do it. It should have automatically been rejected for improper venue. It's not fair and it's not cool.
Then she contemplated fleeing the country.
I would like to
please
go to Bali, get myself together and just enjoy life.
Yes, girl. Enjoy life.
Finally, she just...
That's anarchy. What she was talking about her not being in the same state. I don't know about like U.S. laws, but that just seems crazy. That seems like chaos. Surely you should be able to like still sue someone if they're in the same country, especially when they get like hundreds of thousands of views on their TikTok slandering against you. Where you have so many people spreading around like false rumors that to them it becomes fact. So at some point you do have to like intervene to make sure like this kind of like bullshit information isn't being spread around. So I can see why.
To pick herself up by her bootstraps and attempt to win the case.
If you see, there's a lot of videos about the Ford University of Idaho students and who they think did it. But none of them are in court because nobody was threatened by them. I'm in court because I told the truth.
Well, about that, spoiler alert, she got absolutely destroyed. Apparently, tarot cards really don't hold up in court. Who would have known?
Just doing tarot cards on the table in court.
She still had some absolute brain-dead tricks up her sleeve, like trying to subpoena the professor's lawyer to testify against her own client. That's like saying, Your Honor, I have the IQ of your shoe size. I guess brain-dead moments like that happen when you represent present yourself in court. But the professor's team has now filed a motion for partial summary judgment. And from what I can tell, there's no real reason for it to not be granted. And of course, the TikTok psychic herself, she did respond to that as well. But the TLDR of the professor's motion is plaintiff Rebecca Schofield respectfully requests that the court enter summary judgment on both of her claims against defendant Ashley Gilliard. As a matter of law, and as a consequence of her failure to engage in this litigation as required in the federal rules of civil procedure, Ms. Gilliard has admitted to defaming Professor Schofield. Ms. Gilliard's admissions establish beyond dispute that Ms. Gilliard is liable for her defamation of Professor Schofield. Accordingly, all that remains is for a jury to determine the extent of Professor Schofield's damages. And here they essentially just lay it into her by saying the following facts have been conclusively established by Ms. Gilliard's admissions and other evidence. Ms. Gilliard stated publicly that Professor Schofield was involved with of all the victims. Professor Schofield was not involved with of the victims. The only basis for Mrs. Gilliard's public statements that Professor Schofield was
You're so fucked if in the statement it literally follows out after of you being wrong.
Any physical evidence linking Professor Schofield to the Ms. Gilliard has no written information and has not received any information orally from another human being showing that Professor Schofield ever met any of the victims. Ms. Gilliard knew the Moscow Police Department issued a press release on December 27, 2022, stating that it did not believe that a female associate professor and the chair of the history department who is suing a TikTok user for defamation is involved in this crime. Then they continue by saying concerning Professor Schofield's second claim for relief, the following material facts have been conclusively established. Ms. Gilliard publicly stated that Professor Schofield had an affair with Kaylee. Professor Schofield did not have an affair with Kaylee. The only basis for Ms. Gilliard's statement for
it is just like switch, where like it goes from her saying something, being wrong, making a statement, being wrong, trying to prove something, and then being wrong again.
Saying Ms. Gilliard is not aware of any physical evidence showing that Professor Schofield had an affair with Kaylee. And then you have the conclusion to this, which reads, for the reasons stated herein, Professor Schofield respectfully requests the court to grant plaintiff's motion for summary judgment and hold Ms. Gilliard liable for her defamatory statements as a matter of law. The evidence conclusively establishes that Ms. Gilliard's statements defame Professor Schofield. All that remains is for a jury to determine the amount of Professor Schofield's damages. I mean, the TikTok psychic is cooked here. She's absolutely grilled. She has no wiggle room here at all. She lied about a random professor for attention on the internet, and clearly it's not a harmless lie. This is serious life-ruining defamation, not only for the professor, but also for the families of the victims. I briefly touched on this earlier, but because what makes this a whole new level of messed up is the outrageous statements about the victims, and they're not even here to defend themselves. I just can't imagine being a grieving family, having the unthinkable happen to your kid, and then have some random psycho on the internet making up a bunch of lies about them, claiming they had an inappropriate relationship and so on and so on. That's the last thing you want to hear. It's just
oh my god, that is true. I mean, not even like the family of the victims have come forward to sue her, because that is insane. I'm not sure of the time span between the incident and when she started making her TikToks, making up these lies, but if they were close enough for her to get sued, then it must have been like close enough for the family to have seen it just be even more heartbroken and like could have still taken like more legal action against her, which they should have. Christ.
Beyond disgusting thing to do, and hopefully this case now comes to an end. But of course, not before the TikTok psychic Ashley responded yet again. And this whole response proves how incoherent she is. I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but like some of this just needs to be documented. Like I read this and I was like, guys, we gotta talk about this because this is just, it's insane. Introduction. Comes now, defendant Ashley Gilliard is in opposition to plaintiff Rebecca Schofield's motion for partial summary judgment. This litigation is a matter of determining the truth of the matter, whether or not Rebecca Schofield caused of the 4 University of Idaho students. It's not about that. The whole case is if you defamed her or not. This is not the time to role play as a detective. No, you're supposed to show the court what evidence you have.
Should have said like, Your Honor, yeah, I'm a sidekick. Have you seen my TikToks?
Subject matter of jurisdiction over the plausibility of spiritual belief and practices, which was brought into question by Docket 50. Lastly, it is also important to determine if spiritual messages give rise to a cause of action for defamation. None of the above have been determined. Additionally, defendant Ashley Gilliard has never admitted to defaming plaintiff Rebecca Schofield. Instead, she has continuously argued that this litigation was brought illegally in bad faith to avoid Rebecca Schofield from being properly investigated for ordering the victim. She keeps double downing. And also, she did admit by not responding. This whole case is just gonna go in loops because she's not giving any leeway, and she clearly doesn't even understand what she's doing because this isn't the place for that. Why is she... Like, as I mentioned earlier, she's like doing these like side quests that have nothing to do with this court case to do. She's just LARPing as a detective. This litigation has been complicated by the courts and the public's ignorance on plausibility of tarot card reading.
Oh my god, she actually did as well.
Beliefs. Defender Ashley Gilliard has evidence that she and her spiritual messages are reliable sources. For example, Ashley Gilliard conducted an intuitive tarot card reading for someone on March 8, 2023. It predicted the upcoming death of the person's husband, who was otherwise healthy and young. She's really using a YouTube video of her doing tarot card readings as proof in a lawsuit that tarot cards work. Yeah, it's just like a 40-minute.
I want to see that later, but Christ, that has to be one. Imagine if it was like a 1 in a million chance where the judge was just so brain dead. They're like, oh my god, she can predict the future, or she can like tell what's actually real. That would be so funny. But man, you have to be really delusional, like on a different level, to represent yourself, but also have that as like your forefront for showing why you can actually be a good psychic and why everyone should believe you. So far, I would pay so much money to be like one of those people that they're not part of the jury, but they sit at the back and they just like listen to it. That would be incredible. I want to know how many people were present there, but I bet you that the room after she said that in court probably got half in size because everyone left after being like, that this is so dumb.
Long video of her doing a tarot card reading for I guess a client, and I guess that client's husband passed away later on. Oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. Sorry, I'm dumbfounded. I'm actually at a loss of words. This is wild that she stated that. And because she did a tarot card reading on the school faculty website of, I guess, a random professor, she then believes that's facts. So much so that she makes 100 TikToks and then ignores cease and desist, goes forward with a lawsuit claiming she's excited to prove that she actually did this in this lawsuit, completely misunderstanding the whole point of a defamation case. And throughout the entire defamation case, she just keeps doubling down, claiming that, no, she did this. She really did this. Man, the internet is wild because without the internet, I would have had zero idea that people like this actually exist. So because of this, she has...
Yeah, so on one side, it is funny seeing this kind of stuff, but at the same time, it does like ruin your brain because it makes you lose all hope in people.
The messages she received about Rebecca Schofield are substantially true. Schofield and her attorneys have continuously lied about Ashley Gilliard in every legal document they filed in the civil complaint. For example, Wendy made a false statement the defendant Ashley Gilliard posted content about the students to make money. Attorney Wendy published that lie about Ashley Gilliard knowing it was false because she had the documents from TikTok provided to her after the subpoena dated June 20th, proving that defendant Ashley Gilliard did not make any money by posting content on TikTok. Okay, what about that client you just showed you had? I'm assuming because you made all these TikToks and you had your email to book you as a tarot card reader, you received clients that way. So you received money from this, even though it wasn't TikTok monetization. So that's also just being misleading. But also, that's just like a small thing. That's like a side quest again, because this whole case is about, did she defame the professor or not? Attorney Wendy...
That's true. She just keeps on adding more and more shit, trying to make it even more complex, when it's just very clearly, did you defame her? And she's trying to like kind of lead away from that.
As a matter of law, and as
I feel like part of her has to be scared, seeing how she's been sued, and she has like no freedom to try to prove herself innocent.
The court to deny the plaintiff's motion for summary judgment and to heavily punish the plaintiff and her legal counsel with sanctions. Oh man, this must be such a weird case to be a judge on, because how do you keep a straight face when one of the sides is throwing down tarot cards as facts and using them as her arguments, representing herself, and then also just doesn't even understand how the lawsuit is supposed to be, clearly because she's not a lawyer. Oh man, like this is so bad. But here's the conclusion to her response. If Gilliard's statements are read favorably to the defendant, it will read that she is believed to be telling the truth about Rebecca Schofield's role in the the 4 University of Idaho students and Schofield's affair with Kaylee. So she keeps on doubling down. Additionally, the plaintiff has not provided any evidence that Gilliard is not telling the substantial truth. Well, the whole thing that you forgot to respond to, technically you admitted that you were defaming the professor in that. So that's a big oopsie. Schofield and attorney Wendy has continuously abused the judicial system. They filed the frivolous complaint, disrespected spirituality, Ashley Gilliard, and her spiritual beliefs.
That is a disrespected spirituality. God.
Every docket they filed in the complaint to manipulate the court to believe lies about Ashley Gilliard. They've blocked Gilliard's attempts at obtaining evidence to prove that she's telling the truth about Rebecca Schofield's role. Okay, so we briefly touched on that in one of my previous videos I made on this. But at one point, Ashley tried to subpoena the professor for essentially her entire digital footprint, bank records, all of her social media accounts, to essentially just try to find anything that could corroborate her insane story. So clearly she's mad that she wasn't granted that. Now they filed a frivolous request for summary judgment. Whether or not the court has jurisdiction and if the court impeded upon Gilliard's right to judicial impartiality is pending. Discovery is still ongoing. No, it's not. This is insane. For the aforementioned
This is
reason,
like 4 years for you finding one thing that looks shitty, but it has nothing to do with the court.
deny the request for summary judgment unless it is for a complete dismissal of the complaint and punish Schofield and her attorneys with sanctions. Anything less is an impediment to judicial impartiality for Gilliard. And then here you have like the biggest what is going on here, the prayer of relief. It says she wants. So this is like what she wants from this. Award Ashley Gilliard all court-related fees and sanctions pursuant to Rule 11 in the amount of $1 million. Okay, number one, what fees? Because she's representing herself.
So what's the villain from Austin Powers? $1 billion for the pinky up. That's her. God.
For like the countersuit she tried to file, that would probably be the only thing she paid money for, I think. But the $1 million. So is she claiming that she received $1 million in damages from lost clients for her tarot card reading business? I'm trying to understand where did she pull the $1 million on? Did she just go, well, I went through all this, I deserve $1 million? Where are you getting the number from? But other than that, she also wants to dismiss the action with prejudice due to failure to state a claim for relief pursuant to Rule 12b-6. And 3, set aside order docket 49 pursuant to Rule 60 and Rule 60b. Okay, that was possibly the dumbest legal document I have ever read through. Thank you, Ashley Gilliard. Very cool. Honestly, yeah, if I was a betting man, I would never bet any money on her winning this case because it's guaranteed she's going to get cooked. Essentially, she's just given us a masterclass on how to make an absolute fool out of yourself and ruin your life, all in the span of a year. And somehow, she also has a.
To be fair, when you go for oh, it's a kid as well.
Kid, good luck, Charlie. You're really going to need that because I mean, with this,
that kid is fucked. It's safe to say 1 year seems really short, but when you've got solid evidence, I'm sure a case can be solved that quickly.
That made in the ballpark of 100 TikToks defaming the other part, not vice versa. This whole case is just so.
If you want one TikTok would be enough. What do you have to go out of your way to make 100?
Incredibly bizarre.
What evidence did she have in the 100 videos? Just her doing this over and over.
TikTok deep dive. This is also insane because it starts off weird.
Good.
And then it spirals absolutely out of control throughout the half-hour deep dive I did. If you want to.
God damn. Who knew, guys, that TikTok was full of batshit crazy people? I had no idea. You know, there's only one question I have, and it's that how does one person get you like psychic reading or tarot card reading? That seems like such a niche hobby to have that you have to be like born in a family to like be interested in it. What kind of normal person wakes up one day and be like, I want to be able to like read the future and starts. Where do you even go to learn? You just go like to some random like psychic lady and ask her to teach you. That seems so that's probably a scam as well. Would make you believe that you're a psychic even though it's just complete bullshit. Some of these people are just so like delusional. They really do believe like they have special powers and that they can do this, but in reality it's just some of it has to be like somewhat placebo. I mean, when some people like this, when they have one good case where they win, like she said earlier about her being able to predict someone's death when they were young and healthy. It probably had nothing to do with like the guy's health. It was like an accident, like a car accident. But she was so happy she got it right that she's gonna like prove that of her being an actual psychic to everyone in the court as well. But man, she's just crazy. But she already had like no chance of being like innocent when she had that whole shit, like having no evidence, wiping her ass with like the cease and desist letter, and representing herself like with no lawyer. That is batshit crazy. Some people think they're so smart that they can actually like, they don't need a lawyer, they can do it all themselves. But as you saw with that statement, it was just like full of bullshit that makes no sense. God, but you know what? The only good thing I can see coming from this is that you can like predict the future of the inmates in prison and like make some money on the side from there. I don't know, if she's lucky she will fucking survive.
That ass kick quick, fast, in a hurry, trying to render the man styles of Mr. Keith. Now this goes out to my people's on lockdown and all my people's on the street. This goes out to my people's on lockdown and all my people's